The afternoon train wheezed to a stop at Dry Fork Station, Wyoming Territory, sending up a cloud of coal smoke that hung in the October air like a gray shroud. Through the grimy window, Anna McCrae watched the small cluster of buildings that made up the town shimmer in the late afternoon heat. She'd been traveling for 3 days from Kansas City, and her bones ached from the constant rocking of the train cars. She stood slowly, smoothing down her traveling dress, a practical brown wool that had seen better days but was clean and properly mended. At 5 feet 10 inches, Anna had to duck slightly as she made her way down the narrow aisle. Her height had always been a burden, but here in the West, she'd hoped it might matter less. The letter in her pocket, carefully folded and refolded until the creases were soft as cloth, promised her a position as housekeeper and bookkeeper at the Dalton Ranch. It was a chance for a new start, away from the whispers and pointed looks that had followed her in Kansas City after Charles had broken their engagement. "Too tall," he'd said, "like trying to court a man." Anna lifted her worn carpetbag from the overhead rack and joined the small line of passengers waiting to disembark. A mother with 2 small children struggled with their belongings ahead of her. Without thinking, Anna reached over and lifted the woman's heavy trunk. "Oh," the woman said, looking up and up at Anna. Her expression shifted from gratitude to something else, something Anna knew all too well. "That's very kind." "Think nothing of it," Anna murmured, setting the trunk on the platform before retrieving her own modest bag. The platform was crowded with people meeting the train, ranch hands in dusty clothes, women in calico dresses, children darting between legs like small animals. Anna stood apart, scanning the crowd for someone who might be looking for her. Mr. Dalton's letter had said someone would meet her train. The wind picked up, cold and sharp with the promise of winter, cutting through her dress and the thin wool shawl she'd wrapped around her shoulders. Dust swirled across the wooden platform, and she had to hold her bonnet to keep it from flying away. Her red hair, which she'd pinned up carefully that morning, was already coming loose in copper wisps around her face. "That the new schoolmarm," she heard a man say behind her. "Don't look like no schoolmarm I ever seen," another replied. "Too tall by half, and that red hair—" "Shh, Jed, she'll hear you." Anna kept her back straight and her eyes forward, though heat crept up her neck. She'd learned long ago that acknowledging such comments only made things worse. Instead, she focused on the distant mountains, purple-blue against the fading sky. They were beautiful in a harsh way, nothing like the gentle hills of Missouri where she'd grown up. The crowd on the platform thinned as passengers were collected by waiting families and wagons rolled away toward town or outlying ranches. Still, no one approached her. The station master, a thin man with suspicious eyes, kept glancing her way from his position by the ticket window. Finally, Anna approached him. "Excuse me, sir. I'm looking for someone from the Dalton Ranch. I was told I'd be met." The station master looked her up and down, his gaze lingering on her height and travel-stained dress. "You, the new housekeeper?" "Yes, sir, Anna McCrae," he snorted. "Well, ain't nobody here from Dalton's. Haven't seen hide nor hair of them today." He turned away, clearly considering the conversation over. Anna stood uncertain on the platform. The sun was beginning to sink toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She had little money, just enough for a few nights' lodging if necessary, and knew no one in town. "Ma'am," a young voice made her turn. A boy of perhaps 12 stood before her, hat in hand. "I couldn't help but overhear. The road to Dalton's place is about 5 miles north. I could take you in my pa's wagon for 2 bits. Anna smiled at him gratefully. "That's very kind, but I should wait a bit longer. Perhaps they were delayed." The boy shrugged. "Suit yourself, ma'am. But it gets mighty cold once the sun goes down." He wandered off, and Anna settled onto a rough bench to wait. An hour passed. The platform emptied completely except for Anna and the station master, who finally came out to lock up the freight office. "Still here?" he asked, though the answer was obvious. "It seems so," Anna replied, trying to keep the worry from her voice. "There's a boarding house on Main Street, Mrs. Brewster's. She might have a room, though." He trailed off, looking at her again with that measuring gaze. "Well, she might." Anna thanked him and picked up her bag. The walk into town was only a few hundred yards, but it felt longer with the weight of curious stares from windows and doorways. Dry Fork was like many western towns she'd passed through on the train. One main street lined with false-fronted buildings, a few side streets with houses and corrals. The smell of horses and dust and cooking fires hung in the air. Mrs. Brewster's boarding house was a 2-story clapboard building that had once been painted white, but was now weathered to gray. Anna climbed the front steps and knocked. The woman who answered was small and sharp-featured, with gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. She looked Anna up and down, and her mouth tightened. "I'm looking for a room," Anna began. "Are you now, Mrs.?" Brewster's voice was skeptical. "Traveling alone?" "Yes, ma'am. I've come to work at the Dalton Ranch, but there seems to have been some confusion about—" "I don't rent to unaccompanied women." "Mrs." Brewster interrupted. "This is a respectable establishment." "I assure you, I'm perfectly respectable. I have a letter of employment." "That may be, but I have my rules. Good evening." The door closed firmly in Anna's face. Anna stood on the porch, stunned. In Kansas City, she'd at least had the veneer of middle-class respectability, even if she was considered an oddity. Here, she was simply a tall, unmarried woman traveling alone, suspect by definition. The sun had nearly set now, and the temperature was dropping rapidly. Anna pulled her shawl tighter and walked back toward Main Street. Perhaps there was another boarding house, or even a hotel that would be less particular. She tried the Dry Fork Hotel next, a slightly shabby establishment that catered mainly to traveling salesmen and cowboys passing through. The clerk, a young man with pomaded hair, was more polite than Mrs. Brewster, but no more helpful. "I'm sorry, miss, but we don't— that is, it wouldn't be proper. A lady like yourself. Alone." He spread his hands apologetically. "I see," Anna said quietly. "Could you perhaps direct me to the Dalton Ranch I was supposed to be met? But— Oh, you're the one looking for Dalton's place." The clerk's expression shifted to something like pity. "Ma'am, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but Todd Dalton was in here not 2 hours ago, drinking with some of the other ranchers. Said something about changing his mind about hiring some woman from back east. Said he needed someone who could handle ranch life. Not some—" He paused, clearly editing Dalton's actual words. "Not someone unsuited to the work." The words hit Anna like a physical blow. She gripped her carpetbag tighter to hide the trembling of her hands. All those miles, all that hope, for nothing. "I see," she said again, because what else was there to say, "Thank you for telling me." She walked back out into the growing darkness. The street was mostly empty now, though lights spilled from the saloons and she could hear piano music and rough laughter. A few men lounged against posts, smoking and watching her pass. One whistled, low and mocking. Anna kept walking, not sure where she was going, only knowing she needed to move. At the edge of town, she found herself near the stock pens and stables. The smell of horses and hay was oddly comforting, familiar from her childhood on her father's farm, before he died, and everything changed. She sank onto a pile of lumber stacked beside a corral. Suddenly exhausted, the stars were coming out overhead, brilliant in the clear western sky. She'd never seen stars like this in Kansas City, where gas lights and coal smoke obscured the heavens. "You lost, ma'am." Anna looked up to find a man watching her from the entrance to the stable. He was tall, taller even than her, which was unusual with broad shoulders and the easy stance of someone comfortable with physical work. In the dim light, she could make out weathered features and eyes that seemed kind despite the wariness in them. "Not lost," she said, "just reconsidering my options. He stepped closer, and she could see him better. Maybe 35, with dark hair that needed cutting and clothes that marked him as a working man canvas pants, worn boots, a leather vest over a faded blue shirt. "It's getting cold," he observed, "and this ain't the best part of town for a lady after dark." Anna almost laughed at being called a lady after the evening she'd had. "I've discovered there isn't any part of this town that welcomes unaccompanied women after dark, or before dark, for that matter." The man studied her for a long moment. "You came in on the evening train. I saw you on the platform, along with everyone else in town, apparently. You were expecting to be met." It wasn't a question, but Anna nodded anyway. "The Dalton Ranch. I was hired as a housekeeper, but it seems Mr. Dalton has had second thoughts." The man's expression hardened slightly at Dalton's name. "That sounds like Todd Dalton. Makes promises he don't intend to keep." "You know him." "Everyone knows everyone in a town this size. Name's Colt McCrae." He touched the brim of his hat politely. "I work cattle for various outfits around here." "Anna McCrae," she replied, then added with a small smile, "No relation, I assume." "Not that I know of." He paused, seeming to debate something. "Look, Miss McCrae, it ain't my business, but you can't stay out here, and if Brewster turned you away, you won't find lodging in town tonight." "I'm aware of that." Anna tried to keep the desperation from her voice. She had perhaps $8 to her name. Not enough for a return train ticket. Colt McCrae shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "I've got a place, well, it ain't much, just a room in the old stable here, but there's a tack room that's clean and dry. You could stay there tonight, figure things out in the morning when folks are more reasonable." Anna knew she should be suspicious. A strange man offering shelter was exactly the sort of situation her mother had warned her about. But something in his manner, the way he kept a respectful distance, the straightforward way he spoke made her trust him. "That's very kind," she said carefully. "But I couldn't impose." "It ain't an imposition. Place belongs to old Sam Turner, and he's gone to Denver for the winter. I'm just looking after things. Come on, I'll show you." He turned and walked into the stable without waiting to see if she'd follow. After a moment's hesitation, Anna picked up her bag and went after him. The stable was large and well-maintained, with a dozen stalls along each side. About half were occupied by horses that stirred and nickered softly as they passed. At the far end, a door led to what had probably once been an office or storage area. Colt lit a kerosene lamp, revealing a small but clean space with a narrow cot, a pot-bellied stove, and a few pieces of rough furniture. "This is where you stay?" Anna asked. "When I'm in town, the tack room's through here." He opened another door to show a smaller room lined with saddles, bridles, and other equipment. There was a clear space in one corner with some clean horse blankets stacked on a shelf. "It ain't fancy, but it's warm and dry. I can bring in some straw, make you a proper bed." "Mr. McCrae, I can't—" "You can't sleep on the street neither," he interrupted. "Look, Miss McCrae, I seen you on that platform. You held your head up when those fools were talking. Didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing it bother you. That takes sand. But pride don't keep you warm at night, and it sure don't fill an empty stomach." Anna felt tears prick her eyes and blinked them back fiercely. "Why would you help me? You don't know me." He was quiet for a moment, then said, "Maybe because I know what it's like to not fit where folks think you should. You're not the only one in this town who don't match what people expect." She looked at him more closely then, seeing past the cowboy exterior to something else, an educated way of speaking despite the Western drawl, a thoughtfulness unusual in the rough men she'd encountered. "All right," she said finally. "Just for tonight, and I'll pay you." "You'll do no such thing. But if you can cook, I wouldn't turn down a decent meal. Been eating my own cooking for too long." Anna smiled, the first genuine smile she'd managed all day. "I can cook." "Then we got a deal." He touched his hat again and moved toward the door. I'll get that straw and some extra blankets. There's a pump out back for water, and the privy's behind the building. Not ideal for a lady, but— Mr. McCrae, Anna interrupted. I grew up on a farm. I'll manage. He nodded and left. Anna sank onto a wooden crate, suddenly aware of how close she'd come to disaster. If this man hadn't offered help. She shuddered, thinking of the approaching night in the hostile town. Through the small window, she could see the lights of Dry Fork spreading out below the stable. Somewhere out there was Todd Dalton, probably congratulating himself on avoiding the mistake of hiring an unsuitable woman. Let him, she thought with a surge of anger. She'd survived worse than this. Colt returned with an armload of clean straw and several thick blankets, working together in companionable silence. They arranged a makeshift bed in the corner of the tack room. It looked more comfortable than some places Anna had slept on her journey west. There's beans and cornbread left from my supper. Colt offered. Nothing fancy, but— That sounds wonderful, Anna said, realizing she hadn't eaten since morning. They sat in his small room, sharing the simple meal. Anna noticed he gave her the larger portion without commenting on it. As they ate, she found herself telling him about the teaching position she'd left in Kansas City, though she didn't mention Charles or the real reason she'd been eager to leave. Bookkeeping and housekeeping seems a step down from teaching, Colt observed. Perhaps, but I wanted something different. A place where I could just be useful without being a curiosity. And you thought you'd find that here? His tone was gently skeptical. I thought I seem to have been wrong. Maybe, maybe not. Dry Fork's a small place, but there's always work for someone willing to do it. Might not be what you expected, though. They talked until the lamp burned low. Anna learned that Colt had been in the area for 5 years, working for different ranches as needed, never staying too long in one place. He didn't say why, and she didn't ask. Everyone had their secrets out here. Finally, she retired to the tack room. Despite the strangeness of her surroundings, the smell of leather and horses, the rustling of the animals in their stalls, she felt safer than she had all day. Through the thin wall, she could hear Colt moving around, banking the stove for the night. Miss McCrae, his voice came softly. You all right in there? Yes, and Mr. McCrae, thank you. Get some sleep. Things will look different in the morning. Anna lay on her makeshift bed, looking up at the rafters barely visible in the darkness. Somewhere an owl hooted, and a horse stamped in its stall. She'd lost her position, her plans, and very nearly her dignity today. But somehow, in this unlikely place with this unexpected kindness from a stranger, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The morning sun streamed through the small window of the tack room, falling across Anna's face and waking her from the deepest sleep she'd had in weeks. For a moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the events of yesterday came rushing back. The train, the empty platform, the closed doors, and finally, the unexpected kindness of a stranger. She rose quickly, smoothing her wrinkled dress and repinning her hair as best she could without a mirror. Through the wall, she could hear movement. Colt was already up, probably seeing to the horses. Anna found him in one of the stalls, brushing a bay mare with easy, practiced strokes. He looked up as she approached, touching his hat in greeting. Morning, Miss McCrae. Sleep all right? Better than I expected. Thank you. She hesitated, then asked, Mr. McCrae, could you direct me to the Dalton Ranch? I'd like to speak with Mr. Dalton myself. Colt's hand paused in its brushing. You sure that's wise? I came all this way on the strength of his written offer. The least he can do is tell me to my face why he changed his mind. Todd Dalton ain't known for explaining himself to anyone, least of all women. Nevertheless, I intend to try. Colt studied her for a long moment, then nodded. It's about 5 miles north, like the boy told you yesterday. Take the main road out of town. Turn west at the big cottonwood that's been split by lightning. You can't miss it, biggest spread in the valley. He paused. I'd offer to take you, but I've got horses to deliver this morning. I'll walk, Anna said firmly. I've walked farther. Wait. Colt disappeared into the tack room and returned with a canteen. At least take this. Sun gets hot by midday, even in October. Anna accepted it gratefully. You've been very kind, Mr. McCrae. I'll return this evening for my things, if that's acceptable. Perhaps by then I'll have found other lodgings. The offer stands as long as you need it, he said simply. The walk to the Dalton ranch took nearly 2 hours. The road was dusty and rutted from wagon wheels, winding through sagebrush and bunch grass toward the mountains. Anna's boots, made for city streets, were ill-suited to the terrain, and by the time she saw the ranch buildings in the distance, her feet were blistering. The Dalton spread was indeed impressive. A large 2-story house with a wraparound porch, multiple barns and outbuildings, corrals full of horses and cattle. Men worked around the buildings, and smoke rose from what must be the cookhouse. Anna smoothed her dress again, lifted her chin, and walked up the long drive to the main house. A Mexican woman answered her knock, looking surprised to see a woman alone at the door. I'd like to speak with Mr. Dalton, please. Anna said, My name is Anna McCrae. He's expecting me. The woman's eyes widened slightly. Un momento, she said, and disappeared into the house. After several minutes, footsteps approached heavy, confident steps. The man who appeared in the doorway was perhaps 40, with a thick mustache and the prosperous look of a successful rancher. His eyes swept over Anna, and his expression shifted from curiosity to something like amusement. Well, well, Todd Dalton said, you must be the woman from Kansas City. Mr. Dalton, I arrived yesterday evening, but there was no one to meet me at the station. That's because I sent no one. He leaned against the doorframe, making no move to invite her in. I changed my mind about the arrangement. May I ask why your letter was quite specific about the position and my qualifications? Dalton laughed, a short, dismissive sound. My letter was written before I knew what I'd be getting. When I advertised for a housekeeper and bookkeeper, I pictured someone more suitable. In what way am I unsuitable? I have excellent references, experience managing a household, and 3 years of bookkeeping. Miss McCrae, he interrupted. Look at yourself. You're as tall as most of my ranch hands and built like you could wrestle a steer. When I hire a woman for my household, I expect someone who looks like a woman, not a... He paused, his smile cruel. Well, not whatever you are. Anna felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her voice level. My appearance has no bearing on my ability to keep house or maintain ledgers. It does when I have to look at you every day. Besides, what would people think a woman like you, living under my roof, they'd think I'd lost my mind or worse? His eyes traveled over her again, lingering inappropriately. No, Miss McCrae, you're not what I want in my home. I suggest you catch the next train back to wherever you came from. Mr. Dalton, I spent my last money coming here on the strength of your offer. That's not my concern. He straightened, clearly considering the conversation over. Good day, Miss McCrae. The door closed in her face for the second time in as many days. Anna stood on the porch, trembling with anger and humiliation. Through a window, she could see Dalton talking to someone inside, gesturing and laughing at her. No doubt, the strange woman who thought she could work for him looking the way she did. She turned and walked back down the drive, her head high despite the burning in her eyes. She would not cry. Not here where they could see her from the windows. The walk back to town seemed endless. The sun climbed higher, and the canteen Colt had given her was empty long before she reached the outskirts of Dry Fork. Her feet were raw in her boots, and dust coated her dress and hair. She paused at the edge of town, unsure where to go. The stable was across town, and she wasn't sure she could make it that far without rest. There was a horse trough near the blacksmith shop. Anna limped over to it, sitting carefully on the edge. "You all right there, miss?" Anna looked up to find the blacksmith watching her with concern. He was a large man, his leather apron scarred from years of work. "Just resting," she managed. "It's a long walk from the Dalton place." Understanding dawned in his eyes. "Ah, you're the woman who came in yesterday. Heard Dalton changed his mind about hiring you. News travels fast. Always does in a small town." He studied her for a moment. "Name's Ben Foster. You look about done in. My wife's got the shop next door dressmaker. She might have a chair you could rest in. Maybe some water." "That's kind, but—" "No buts about it. Mary," he called. "Got a lady here needs to sit a spell." A woman emerged from the shop next door, small and neat with graying brown hair. She took one look at Anna and clucked her tongue. "Lord have mercy. Ben, can't you see she's about to faint? Come on, dear, let's get you inside." Before Anna could protest, she found herself ushered into the cool dimness of the dress shop, seated in a comfortable chair with a glass of water pressed into her hands. "Sip slowly," Mary Foster advised. "You've had too much sun. Ben, fetch some cool water for her feet. Those boots look like they're killing her." "I'm fine, really." "Nonsense. I can see blood on your stockings from here." Mary knelt and began unlacing Anna's boots with practiced efficiency. Walking to Dalton's and back in city boots? What were you thinking? "I needed to speak with him," Anna said, wincing as the boots came off. "And did you?" "Yes." Mary waited, but when Anna said nothing more, she nodded. "I see. Well, Todd Dalton's loss. I say, man thinks he's too good for everyone since he struck it rich with that government beef contract." She produced a basin of cool water, and Anna nearly cried with relief as she soaked her blistered feet. Mary bustled about, talking steadily as she gathered clean rags and salve. "You're the tallest woman I've ever seen," Mary said matter-of-factly. "But I've dressed taller problems. Mrs. Hendricks over at the Double Bar Ranch has a goiter the size of a melon, and I still make her look presentable. Height's nothing compared to that." Despite everything, Anna found herself almost smiling. "You're very kind, Mrs. Foster." "Call me Mary, and it's not kindness, it's practicality. A woman alone in this town needs friends, and I could use someone with good handwriting to help with my accounts. My eyes aren't what they used to be." Anna looked up sharply. "Are you offering me work?" "Maybe. Can you sew?" "Passably. Can you deal with fussy women who want to look like fashion plates from Godey's Lady's Book despite living in the middle of nowhere?" "I taught teenage girls. I can handle difficult people." Mary smiled. "Then yes, I'm offering you work. Can't pay much, maybe $4 a week. But there's a small room above the shop you could have." Anna blinked back sudden tears. "Mrs. Foster, Mary, I don't know what to say." "Say yes, and we'll figure out the rest." Mary patted her shoulder. "Besides, it'll be nice to have someone to talk to who's read a book more recent than the Bible." "She ain't staying above no shop." Ben Foster's voice came from the doorway. "Not proper for a young woman alone." Mary's face fell. "Oh, Ben, surely—" "I'm not saying she can't work for you," Ben continued. "But she needs a respectable place to stay. What would people say?" Anna's heart sank. Even kindness came with conditions here. "I understand," she said quietly. "Thank you anyway." "Which is why she'll stay with us." Ben finished. "We got that spare room since Johnny left for California. Might as well put it to use." Both women stared at him. Mary recovered first. "Ben Foster, you never cease to surprise me." He shrugged, looking embarrassed. "Man judges a woman for trying to make an honest living. He ain't much of a man. Besides, you've been complaining about needing help with the shop." Anna couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. These people didn't know her, had no obligation to her. Yet they were offering not just work, but a home. I don't know how to thank you, she managed. Don't thank us yet, Mary said briskly. I'm a taskmaster when it comes to my shop, and Ben snores something awful. You might be wishing yourself back in Kansas before the week's out. They settled the details quickly. Anna would help Mary in the shop, keeping books and assisting with simpler sewing tasks. In exchange, she'd receive wages and board. It was far less grand than managing the Dalton household would have been, but it was honest work and honest people. I need to collect my things, Anna said, gingerly pulling on her boots. I left them at the stable. The Turner stable, that where you stayed last night. At Anna's nod, Mary's expression softened further. Colt McCrae's a good man. Bit of a loner, but good-hearted. He helped our Johnny once when he got in trouble with some rough cowboys. Anna made her way back to the stable as the afternoon shadows lengthened. She found Colt repairing a harness, his hands steady and sure on the leather. He looked up as she approached, and she saw concern flash across his face. Rough morning, he asked, taking in her dusty dress and careful walk. Mr. Dalton was very clear about my unsuitability for the position. Colt's jaw tightened. Todd Dalton wouldn't know quality if it bit him. His loss. Perhaps, but I've found other employment. Mary Foster needs help in her shop. Mary's good people, and Ben's fair, even if he is particular about propriety. He set aside the harness. They offering you lodging too? Yes, they've been very kind. Anna hesitated. As have you, Mr. McCrae. I won't forget it. Nothing to forget, just basic decency. He stood, and again Anna was struck by how tall he was, one of the few men she'd met who made her feel less like a giant. I'll help you gather your things. There wasn't much to gather, just her carpet bag and the blankets from her makeshift bed. As they folded them, Anna felt oddly reluctant to leave this stable that had been her refuge. I'm glad you found something, Colt said quietly. Town like this can be hard on a woman alone. I'm beginning to understand that. She paused, then asked, Why did you help me, really? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Finally, he said, maybe because I know what it's like to be told you don't fit, to have doors closed in your face for reasons that got nothing to do with who you are or what you can do. There was a story there. Anna could tell, but she didn't press. Everyone was entitled to their secrets. Well, she said instead, if you ever need a shirt mended or someone to talk to who doesn't fit either, you know where to find me. A small smile crossed his face. I'll keep that in mind. Miss McCrae. As Anna walked toward her new life at the Foster house, carpetbag in hand, she thought about closed doors and unexpected openings. Todd Dalton had slammed his door in her face, just as others had before him, but here in this unlikely place, other doors had opened tentatively, conditionally, but open nonetheless. She thought of Colt McCrae, alone in his stable room, and wondered what doors had been closed to him. Perhaps someday he'd trust her enough to tell her. For now, it was enough to know that in a town full of suspicious eyes and wagging tongues, she'd found a few people willing to see past her height and circumstances to the person underneath. It wasn't what she'd planned when she boarded that train in Kansas City. But as Mary Foster had said, plans had a way of changing out here in the West. Sometimes, if you were lucky, they changed for the better. 2 weeks had passed since Anna began working at Mary Foster's dress shop. Her hands had grown accustomed to the fine needlework, and her eyes no longer ached from straining over the account books in the evening lamplight. The small room at the Foster house was comfortable, with a real bed and a window that looked out over the distant mountains. It was more than she'd dared hope for after that terrible first day in Dry Fork. This afternoon, Mary had sent her on an errand to purchase thread from the general store. Anna had learned to ignore the stares and whispers that followed her through town, though they still stung. She was examining a selection of silk thread when the bell above the door chimed. "Afternoon, Sam," the shopkeeper called out. "What can I do for you?" "Need some grain for the horses. Charlie, 10 sacks if you got 'em." Anna recognized the voice before she turned. Colt McCrae stood near the counter, his hat in his hand, looking as solid and steady as he had that night in the stable. She hadn't seen him since he'd helped her move to the foster house. Their eyes met across the store. Something flickered in his expression. Pleasure, perhaps, or surprise. He nodded politely. "Miss McCrae." "Mr. McCrae." She found herself smiling. "How are you?" "Can't complain. I see you're settling in all right." "Yes, very well. The Fosters have been wonderful." Charlie, the shopkeeper, looked between them with interest. "You two know each other?" "We've met," Colt said simply, in a tone that didn't invite further questions. Anna paid for her thread and turned to leave, but Colt's voice stopped her. "Miss McCrae, if you're heading back to Mary's shop, I'm going that way with the wagon. Save you the walk." She hesitated. Being seen riding with an unmarried man would set tongues wagging even more than usual. But her feet, though healed from that terrible first walk, still ached by day's end. "That's very kind," she said. Outside, Colt helped her up to the wagon seat with a steady hand. His touch was brief, respectful, but Anna felt warmth spread from where his fingers had gripped hers. She settled her skirts and tried to look composed. They rode in silence for a moment before Colt spoke. "How are you finding the work?" "It suits me well. I've always enjoyed working with my hands, and Mary is a patient teacher." "And the town people treating you all right?" Anna chose her words carefully. "Some are kinder than others. But I expected that." Colt made a sound that might have been agreement or disgust. "This town's got a way of deciding what folks should be before they get a chance to show what they are." Speaking from experience. He glanced at her, and she saw that guarded look again. "Maybe—" They were passing the stable where she'd spent her first night when Anna noticed activity in the yard. Several men were loading equipment onto wagons, and horses were being led from the stalls. "Moving day?" she asked. "Sam Turner's back from Denver. I'll be heading out tomorrow, working the fall roundup for the Jackson spread." Anna felt an unexpected pang of disappointment. "How long will you be gone?" "Few weeks, maybe a month. Depends on how scattered the cattle are." He paused. "Why?" She felt heat rise in her cheeks. "No reason. Mary mentioned you sometimes need mending done. I thought if you left some things, I could work on them while you're away." It was a weak excuse, and they both knew it. But Colt simply nodded. "That's thoughtful. I do have a shirt or two could use attention." They pulled up outside the dress shop. As Colt helped her down, Mary appeared in the doorway, her sharp eyes taking in the scene. "Colt McCrae," she called. "Haven't seen you in town for days." "Been busy. Mrs. Foster, getting ready for roundup." "Well, don't be a stranger. You're too thin. Come for supper Sunday before you head out." Colt shifted uncomfortably. "That's kind, ma'am, but—" "No buts. Ben wants to talk to you about shoeing that stallion of his anyway. 6 o'clock sharp." She disappeared back into the shop before he could protest further. Anna bit back a smile at his expression. "Mary can be forceful," she offered. "That's one word for it." He looked down at her, and his expression softened. "Will you be there at supper?" "I live there, Mr. McCrae. I'd be hard-pressed to avoid it." "Colt," he said quietly. "Think we know each other well enough for first names by now." "Colt," she repeated, liking the sound of it. "Then you must call me Anna." He touched his hat. "Until Sunday, then, Anna." She watched him drive away, then went into the shop where Mary was waiting with a knowing smile. "Don't start," Anna warned. "I didn't say a word, though he is a fine-looking man, if you like them tall and brooding." "Mary." "And he's got steady work, which is more than most around here can say. Owns his own horse and saddle, too. That's practically wealthy for a cowboy." Anna busied herself with sorting the thread. "He was simply being kind. offering me a ride. Mary's tone suggested she wasn't fooled. Well, kindness is a good start. Sunday arrived with the first real cold snap of autumn. Anna helped Mary prepare the meal roast beef with potatoes and carrots, fresh bread, apple pie made from the last of the season's fruit. It was the kind of meal ranch families might have once a month if they were lucky. Colt arrived precisely at 6, wearing what was clearly his best shirt, clean and pressed, but showing careful mends at the cuffs. He'd made an effort with his appearance, his hair damp from recent washing, his jaw freshly shaved. Come in, Ben boomed. Before you freeze out there. The meal was surprisingly comfortable. Ben and Colt discussed horses and the upcoming roundup, while Mary kept everyone's plates full. Anna found herself studying Colt across the table, noticing things she'd missed before, the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the careful way he handled Mary's good dishes, the educated turns of phrase that slipped into his speech despite the cowboy drawl. After dinner, while the women cleared the table, Ben and Colt stepped out to the porch to smoke. Through the window, Anna could see them talking, Ben gesturing with his pipe. He's sweet on you, Mary said quietly. Don't be ridiculous. Anna McCrae, I've been married 30 years. I know when a man's interested. The question is, what do you think of him? Anna dried a dish carefully, considering. What did she think of Colt McCrae? He was kind, certainly decent. There was something steady about him that appealed to her, especially after Charles's fickleness. I think, she said slowly, that I'm grateful for his friendship. Mary made a skeptical sound, but didn't push further. Later, as the evening wound down, Anna found herself alone with Colt on the porch while Mary and Ben did their evening Bible reading inside. The stars were brilliant in the cold, clear sky. Mary tells me you're from Missouri originally, Colt said. A farm near Independence. You... Here and there. At her look, he added, Army brat. My father was stationed all over before he died. Is that how you learned to speak so well? You're obviously educated. In the dim light, she saw him tense. Does it matter? No, I'm just curious. You're not quite what you seem, are you? He was quiet for a long moment. Neither are you. A woman who reads Latin and keeps books ending up in a dress shop in Wyoming territory. How did you know I read Latin? Saw your book that night in the stable, Caesar's Commentaries. Not usual reading material for a Kansas City schoolmarm. Anna smiled. My father believed in education, even for daughters, especially for tall, awkward daughters who weren't likely to make good marriages. Your father sounds like he was wrong about that last part. The words hung in the air between them. Anna's breath caught. Before she could respond, the door opened and Ben appeared. Getting late, he said pointedly. Colt, you'll want to get back before it gets any colder. Colt stood immediately. You're right. Thank you for supper. Mrs. Foster. He called inside. Best meal I've had in months. You take care on that roundup, Mary called back. Don't let those Jackson boys talk you into anything foolish. He promised, then turned to Anna. About those shirts. Oh, yes. She'd forgotten the pretense. If you could bring them by the shop tomorrow. I'll do that. He hesitated, then added quietly, Take care of yourself while I'm gone. I'm perfectly safe here. I know, just take care anyway. He put on his hat and walked away into the darkness. Anna stayed on the porch, watching until she couldn't see him anymore, wondering why his leaving felt like a loss. The next morning, he appeared at the shop with a bundle of mending. Mary made herself scarce, suddenly remembering urgent business in the back room. These are in worse shape than I thought, Anna said, examining a shirt with a torn shoulder seam. How long have you been batching it? 5 years, give or take. 5 years alone. He shrugged. Never saw much point in doing otherwise. And now, the question slipped out before she could stop it. Colt went very still. "Now I'm starting to," he said quietly. "Which is inconvenient, given my line of work." "Why?" "Cowboys don't make good husbands. Anna, gone for weeks at a time, following the work. No real home except a saddle and a bedroll. That's no life to offer a woman." "Maybe that depends on the woman." He looked at her then. Really looked at her. And Anna felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with her height or her circumstances. "Maybe it does," he agreed. "But it's still no life for a woman who deserves better." Before she could ask what he meant, he touched his hat and left. Anna stood holding his shirts, her heart racing, wondering if she'd just been rejected or promised something. With Colt McCrae, it was hard to tell the difference. She spent the rest of the day working on his mending, taking more care than the worn garments probably deserved. Each careful stitch felt like a promise of its own that he would come back, that this conversation wasn't finished, that maybe, just maybe, she'd found something in Dry Fork she hadn't even known she was looking for. Outside, storm clouds gathered over the mountains, promising an early winter. Anna thought of Colt heading into those hills with the Jackson crew, sleeping under the cold stars, wrestling cattle in the wind and snow. It was a hard life. He was right about that. But she'd grown up on a farm, known hard work and disappointment. She'd survived Charles's rejection, Todd Dalton's cruelty, the whispers and stares of this unforgiving town. She was tougher than she looked tough enough, perhaps, for a cowboy's uncertain life, if he ever asked. When the first snowflakes began to fall that evening, Anna wrapped Colt's mended shirts carefully and set them aside. He'd be back for them in a few weeks. And when he returned, maybe they could finish what they'd started, this careful dance around the possibility of something more. For now, it was enough to know that somewhere in those cold hills, a tall, quiet man was thinking of her, just as she was thinking of him. Despite all the reasons she shouldn't, Mary was right. Kindness was a good start. But what lay between her and Colt McCrae was beginning to feel like something more than kindness. Something that might, if they were brave enough, grow into the kind of love that could weather any storm, even in a town that had no place for either of them. The first snow of November was falling when Colt McCrae returned to Dry Fork. 3 weeks on the Jackson Roundup had left him leaner. His face burned dark by wind and sun despite the cold. He'd thought about Anna McCrae every night, watching the stars from his bedroll and wondering if he was a fool for wanting something he had no right to want. He stabbed his horse at Turner's, washed the worst of the trail dust off at the pump, and changed into his least worn shirt. The mended ones Anna had worked on were carefully packed in his saddlebags. He'd been saving them for town, not wanting to risk them on the range. The Foster house stood warm and welcoming against the gray afternoon sky. Smoke rose from the chimney, and through the front window, he could see lamplight. He knocked, hat in hand, suddenly uncertain of his welcome after 3 weeks away. Mary Foster opened the door, her face brightening. "Colt, we were wondering when you'd blow back into town. Come in out of that snow." "Afternoon, Mrs. Foster. Is Anna Miss McCrae, is she here?" "In the shop, working on Mrs. Henderson's wedding dress. 3rd fitting this week, and the woman's still not satisfied." Mary's eyes twinkled. "Anna's been watching for you, though she'd die before admitting it." Colt felt warmth that had nothing to do with the house's heat. "Has she been well?" "Well enough. Working too hard, if you ask me. Girl acts like she's got to prove herself worthy of breathing the air." Mary's expression grew serious. "She could use a friend. Colt, this town hasn't gotten any kinder while you've been gone." He found Anna in the shop, kneeling beside a dress form draped in ivory silk. Her red hair was pinned up severely, but wisps had escaped to curl around her face. She was focused on her work, pins between her lips, adjusting a hem with careful precision. "Mary, could you hand me the—" She looked up and saw him. The pins fell from her mouth, scattering across the floor. "Colt." "Hello, Anna." They stared at each other for a moment that stretched like taffy. She looked tired, he thought. Shadows under her green eyes that hadn't been there before. But when she smiled, it was like sunrise after a long night. "You're back," she said unnecessarily. "I said I would be." "Yes, you did." She stood, brushing at her skirts, suddenly self-conscious. "How was the roundup?" "Cold, profitable for Jackson, though lost hardly any cattle." He wanted to say more how he'd thought of her, how the other cowboys' crude jokes about women had made him angry in a way they never had before, how he'd counted the days until he could return. Instead, he said, "The shirt's held up well. Your mending's better than new." "I'm glad." She moved toward him, then seemed to catch herself. "Would you like some coffee? Mary just made a fresh pot." "I'd like that." They sat in the small back room of the shop, cups between them, snow falling steadily outside. Anna told him about the wedding dress, about Mrs. Henderson's impossible demands, about the first snowfall 2 weeks ago that had caught everyone by surprise. Normal things, safe things. But underneath, something electric hummed between them. "Anna," he began, then stopped. How could he say what he wanted to say? That seeing her again felt like coming home, that he'd never thought of himself as lonely until he met her and realized what he'd been missing. "I know," she said quietly. "I felt it too, these 3 weeks." "It's not sensible," he said. "What I'm thinking, what I'm feeling." When has being sensible ever gotten either of us what we wanted? There was a bitter edge to her voice. "I was sensible when I accepted Charles's suit, and he threw me over for being too tall. I was sensible when I took Dalton's offer, and he laughed in my face. Maybe it's time to try something else." "Anna." The shop bell jangled violently. They both looked up as the door burst open, bringing a swirl of snow and cold air. Todd Dalton himself stood in the doorway, his expensive coat dusted with snow, his face red with cold or drink or both. "So it's true," he said, his words slightly slurred. "The Scarecrow's entertaining cowboys now." Anna stood, her spine straightening. "Mr. Dalton, the shop is closed." "I'm not here for a dress." He swayed slightly, his eyes mean. "Came to see what kind of establishment Mary Foster's running here. Heard she's got her charity case playing house with saddle tramps." Colt rose slowly, moving to stand slightly in front of Anna. "You're drunk. Dalton, go home." Colt McCrae. Dalton's laugh was ugly. "Should have known. 2 misfits together. The giant woman and the educated cowboy who thinks he's too good to work steady for anyone." "That's enough," Colt said quietly. "Is it, you know what people are saying, that she's your woman, that you set her up here, visiting whenever you're in town?" Dalton's gaze slid to Anna. "Though why any man would want something like you?" Colt moved. One moment he was standing still. The next his fist connected with Dalton's jaw. The rancher stumbled backward, crashing into a dress form, sending ivory silk pooling across the floor. "Colt, no!" Anna grabbed his arm as he stepped forward again. Dalton struggled to his feet, blood trickling from his lip. "You'll regret that. McCrae, I'll see you run out of this territory." "Try it." Colt's voice was deadly calm. "But if you come near Miss McCrae again, if you so much as speak her name, you'll get worse than a split lip." Dalton glared at them both, then stumbled out into the snow. Anna quickly shut and locked the door behind him, her hands shaking. "The dress," she said faintly, looking at the ruined silk. "Mrs. Henderson's wedding dress. I'll pay for it." Colt flexed his hand, knuckles already swelling. "You can't. It's $20 worth of silk alone." Anna sank into a chair. "Mary will have to let me go. She can't afford—" "Anna." Colt knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. "Look at me." She did, tears threatening. "Why did you do that? Now Dalton will make trouble for you too." Because nobody talks to you that way, not while I'm breathing. His thumb stroked across her knuckles. And if Mary lets you go over this, you'll come with me. What? I've been thinking, out there with the cattle and stars, thinking about what I want, what's sensible, what's possible. He took a breath. I've got some money saved, enough to lease a small place, run a few cattle of my own. It wouldn't be much at first, but... Colt McCrae, Anna interrupted. Are you proposing to me over a ruined wedding dress? He looked startled, then rueful. I suppose I am, doing it badly, too. You're doing fine. She turned her hands in his, gripping tight. But you don't have to marry me out of pity or some misguided sense of protection. Pity. He pulled back to look at her fully. Anna, you're the strongest woman I've ever met. You came here alone, faced down Dalton's cruelty, made a place for yourself through sheer will. You don't need my protection, but I'd like to offer it anyway, along with everything else I have, which isn't much, but it's yours if you want it. Why? She whispered. Because when I'm with you, I don't feel like I'm playing a part anymore. I can be both things, the cowboy and the man who reads Caesar's commentaries. Because you look at me and see something worth knowing, not just a hired hand or a curiosity. He paused. Because I love you, Anna McCrae, have since that first night when you held your head high despite everything. Anna couldn't speak past the lump in her throat. Instead, she leaned forward until her forehead rested against his. Yes, she managed. To all of it, yes. The shop door rattled. Anna Colt, what's going on in there? Mary Foster's voice carried clearly. They pulled apart reluctantly. Anna smoothed her skirts and went to unlock the door. Mary took one look at the scene, the ruined dress, Colt's swollen knuckles, their flushed faces, and sighed. Todd Dalton. He was drunk, Anna said. He said things. Colt defended my honor. And the dress. Ruined, Mary. I'm so sorry. I'll work without wages until... You'll do no such thing. Mary bent to examine the silk. This can be salvaged. Different style, maybe. But Mrs. Henderson will never know the difference if we handle it right. She looked between them shrewdly. Now, what else happened here? Anna glanced at Colt, who nodded. Colt's asked me to marry him. I said yes. Mary's face transformed. Well, it's about time, Ben. Get in here, we have news. The next hour passed in a blur. Ben appeared, shook Colt's hand solemnly, then produced a bottle of whiskey for medicinal purposes. They drank a toast while Mary fussed over the dress and made plans. When? She asked. Soon as possible. Colt said, before winter sets in hard. I want to get Anna settled somewhere proper. You have a place in mind? The old Baxter homestead? It's been empty 2 years, but the house is sound. I can lease it through spring. See if we can make a go of it. Anna listened to them plan, feeling dreamlike. This morning she'd been a spinster seamstress with uncertain prospects. Now she was engaged to a man who defended her with his fists and spoke of their future with quiet certainty. You're sure? She asked Colt quietly, while Mary and Ben debated wedding arrangements. I'm not what most men want in a wife. I'm too tall, too educated, too... Perfect, he interrupted. You're perfect for me. Anna, the question is whether I'm enough for you. A cowboy with pretensions and a leased ranch isn't much of a catch. You're the only man who ever looked at me and saw something other than an oddity, she said. That makes you the best catch in the territory. Later, after plans were made and the Fosters had retired, Anna walked Colt to the door. Snow was still falling, blanketing the town in pristine white. I should warn you, she said. I can't cook much beyond basics. I'm terrible at gardening, and I have opinions about everything. I should warn you, he replied. I track mud everywhere. I raid late into the night, and I've been told I'm too quiet by half. We'll make a fine pair then. He kissed her forehead, gentle as snowfall. The finest. After he left, Anna stood in the doorway watching the snow erase his footprints. In a few weeks, she'd be Anna McCrae, living on a leased ranch with a man who'd been a stranger just a month ago. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt a peace she hadn't known since her father died. Todd Dalton would make trouble. She knew. The town would gossip even more. There would be hard times ahead, making a ranch work with little money and less help. But standing there in the doorway of the shop that had given her refuge, looking out at the town that had tried to break her, Anna smiled. She'd found something better than acceptance in Dry Fork. She'd found love with a man who saw her truly, who offered not rescue but partnership. Tomorrow they'd face whatever came Dalton's revenge, the town's censure, the challenges of starting a life together. Tonight, she was simply a woman in love, watching snow fall on a town that would never quite know what to make of her. And that, she thought, was exactly as it should be. News of the engagement spread through Dry Fork like wildfire in August grass. By the next morning, Anna couldn't walk to the shop without feeling eyes on her from behind curtains and hearing whispers that stopped just as she passed. The combination of her unconventional appearance and Colt's public defense of her against Todd Dalton had given the gossips enough fuel to last through winter. "Let them talk," Mary said firmly as they worked on salvaging Mrs. Henderson's wedding dress. Small minds need something to occupy them. But it wasn't just talk. When Anna went to purchase flour at the general store, Mrs. Prudence Walsh, the banker's wife, made a show of gathering her skirts away as if Anna's presence might contaminate them. "I suppose we should congratulate you," Mrs. Walsh said, her voice carrying clearly through the store. "Though what kind of marriage can one expect when it begins with violence? That poor Mr. Dalton, attacked simply for speaking his mind." Anna kept her eyes on the flour sacks, but her hands trembled slightly. "Mr. Dalton was drunk and insulting. Mrs. Walsh, any gentleman would have acted as Colt did." "A gentleman." Mrs. Walsh's companion, Mrs. Harriet Price, tittered. "Is that what we're calling saddle tramps now? Better a hard-working cowboy than a man who insults women." Anna replied evenly. "Women who know their place don't get insulted," Mrs. Walsh said. "But then, a woman like you, well, I suppose you take what you can get." Charlie, the shopkeeper, cleared his throat nervously. "That'll be 40 cents for the flour. Miss McCrae." Anna paid and left, her face burning. Outside, she nearly collided with Reverend Matthews, the Methodist minister who ran the small church at the end of Main Street. "Miss McCrae," he said gravely, "I wonder if I might have a word." Anna's heart sank. "Of course, Reverend. I've heard about your situation, your engagement to Mr. McCrae." He pursed his lips. "While I don't condone violence, I understand Mr. Dalton's behavior was provocative. However, I must ask, are you certain this marriage is wise? You've known each other such a short time." "With respect, Reverend, how long should two people know each other before it's acceptable? A month, a year, a lifetime?" "It's not just the time, my dear. It's the circumstances. You, a woman alone, him defending you so publicly. People are bound to think that he's marrying me out of obligation." Anna lifted her chin. "Or that I've trapped him somehow. Which particular unchristian speculation would you like me to address?" The Reverend flushed. "I only meant to offer guidance. Marriage is a sacred institution." "Yes, it is. And I intend to honor it with a man who sees my worth, not despite my differences, but because of them. Good day, Reverend." She walked away, leaving him standing open-mouthed on the sidewalk, but her bold front crumbled as soon as she was out of sight. In the alley beside the dress shop, she leaned against the wall, fighting tears. "Anna." She looked up to find young Samuel Turner, the stable owner's nephew, watching her with concern. He was perhaps 17, earnest and kind, one of the few people in town who'd always treated her with respect. Are you all right, Miss? Yes, Samuel, it's been a difficult morning. His face darkened. I heard what Mrs. Walsh said in the store. She's got no right. You and Mr. McCrae, you're good people. Better than most in this town. That's kind of you to say. It's true. Mr. McCrae helped me last spring when those cowboys from the double bar were pushing me around. Didn't ask for nothing in return. Neither. And you always speak to me like I'm a person, not just some stable hand. He shuffled his feet. What I'm saying is, don't let them get to you. Some of us know quality when we see it. Anna smiled despite her tears. Thank you, Samuel. That means more than you know. Inside the shop, she found Colt waiting with Mary. His face was tight with barely controlled anger. I heard what happened at the store, he said. News travels fast. I'll speak to Mrs. Walsh. You'll do no such thing. Anna removed her shawl with deliberate calm. That would only make things worse. They have no right. They have every right to their opinions, however small-minded. She moved to the work table, picking up her sewing. I've dealt with worse. Colt, this won't break me. It shouldn't be breaking you at all. You should be planning your wedding with joy, not defending yourself to hypocrites. Mary intervened. Why don't you two take a walk? I can manage here for an hour. Outside, the November air was sharp and clean. They walked toward the edge of town, where the buildings gave way to open land and the mountains rose white-capped in the distance. Maybe we should leave, Colt said quietly. After we're married. Go somewhere they don't know us. No, Anna's voice was firm. I won't be driven out. Not again. Anna, I've been running my whole life. Colt, from the farm after Papa died. From Kansas City after Charles. If we run from Dry Fork, where does it stop? There will always be people who think I'm too tall, too plain, too much. At some point, I have to stop running and make a stand. He took her hand, lacing their fingers together. Then we make a stand together. Even if it costs you, Dalton has influence. He could make it hard for you to find work. I've been thinking about that. They paused at a wooden fence overlooking a meadow. What if we didn't depend on men like Dalton? The Baxter place has good grass, water rights. If I could get a small herd started, maybe run some horses too. That takes money. I've saved most of my wages for 5 years. It's not much, but it might be enough for a start. And you're good with numbers. Could keep the books. Maybe take in sewing work too. He turned to face her. I'm not saying it would be easy, but it would be ours. Anna felt something ease in her chest. Our own place, where the only opinions that matter are ours. Exactly. When do we marry? How's next Sunday give the gossip something new to talk about? She laughed, surprising herself. A week to plan a wedding, Mary will have apoplexy. Or, he said slowly, we could marry today. Anna stared at him. Today? Why not? The circuit judge is in town for the court session. We could be married this afternoon, move out to the Baxter place tomorrow. His hands tightened on hers. I'm tired of giving this town power over us. Anna, let's just start our life. But Mary's planning a dinner, and I don't have a dress. Do you need those things, or do you need to be married to me? When he put it like that, the answer was simple. I need to be married to you. Then let's go find Judge Harrison. They walked back through town hand in hand, ignoring the stares and whispers. At the courthouse, they found Judge Harrison just finishing the morning session. He was a stern man in his 60s, but his eyes were kind as Colt explained their request. You have witnesses, the judge asked. We'll find them, Colt said. They emerged to find Ben and Mary Foster hurrying toward them. Samuel Turner close behind. Samuel came running, Mary panted. Said you were heading to the courthouse. Tell me you're not doing what I think you're doing. We're getting married. Anna said, right now. Will you stand witness? Mary's face went through several expressions before settling on resignation mixed with affection. Anna McCrae, you'll be the death of me. Of course we'll witness, but I'll never forgive you for denying me a proper wedding to plan. The ceremony was brief and simple. Judge Harrison spoke the words with grave dignity while Mary sniffled and Ben stood solid as an oak. Samuel grinned through the whole thing. When Colt kissed her a proper kiss this time, not just a forehead brush, Anna heard Mary sigh with satisfaction. I now pronounce you man and wife. Judge Harrison concluded, May God bless your union and may you prove all the doubters wrong. Outside the courthouse, they were met by a small crowd that had somehow materialized. Some faces were friendly Samuel's uncle, a few of the ranch hands who knew Colt, even Charlie from the general store. But others were hostile, including Mrs. Walsh and her coterie. Married in haste, Mrs. Walsh said loudly. We all know what that means. It means, Anna said clearly, that we didn't want to wait another day to start our life together, something I'm sure you can understand. Mrs. Walsh, given that you eloped with Mr. Walsh when you were 17. The woman's face went red. That was different. Yes, Anna agreed. You were running from your father's disapproval. We're simply choosing not to run at all. Colt's hand found the small of her back, warm and steadying. If you'll excuse us, we have packing to do. They walked away together, leaving the crowd buzzing behind them. At the dress shop, Mary embraced Anna tightly. You're sure about this moving out to that ranch so quick? I've never been more sure of anything. Mary pressed a wrapped bundle into her hands. Your wedding gift. I was saving it for next week, but... Anna unwrapped it to find a beautiful quilt, pieced in shades of blue and cream. Mary, it's lovely. Every new bride needs a good quilt, especially one heading to a house that's been empty 2 years. She wiped her eyes. Now go on, get your things. Ben's hitching the wagon to help you move. The rest of the day passed in a whirl. Anna packed her few belongings while Colt arranged for supplies and checked the condition of the Baxter house. By evening, they stood together in what would be their home, a small but sturdy 2-room cabin with a good fireplace and windows facing the mountains. It needs work, Colt said, looking around at the dusty floors and cobwebs. It's perfect, Anna said, meaning it. It's ours. That night, as they lay together under Mary's quilt with the fire crackling in the hearth, Anna thought about the journey that had brought her here, a month ago. She'd stepped off a train with nothing but false promises and fading hope. Now she was married to a man who valued her, in a house they would make a home, with a whole future spread before them like an unwritten page. No regrets, Colt asked softly in the darkness. None. You... Only that I didn't punch Dalton harder. She laughed, curling closer to his warmth. Outside. Wind rattled the windows and coyotes called in the distance. Tomorrow would bring new challenges making the ranch work, facing the town's continued disapproval, building a life from little more than determination and love. But tonight, in this simple cabin with this complicated man who'd chosen her above all sense and expectation, Anna McCrae was exactly where she belonged. The town could whisper all it wanted. She'd found something worth more than their approval, a partner who saw her truly, and a love strong enough to weather any storm. I love you, Colt McCrae, she whispered. And I love you, Anna McCrae. He replied, too tall, too smart, too perfect for a cowboy like me. Just tall enough, she corrected. Just smart enough, and exactly perfect for you. In the morning, they would start the hard work of building a life. But for now, they held each other in the darkness. Two misfits who'd found their perfect fit at last. The blizzard came without warning on their 3rd week at the ranch. Anna woke to howling wind and snow so thick she couldn't see the barn from the kitchen window. Colt had gone out at first light to check the cattle they'd managed to purchase, just 20 head, but their entire savings invested in those animals. Colt, she called from the doorway, squinting into the white fury. No answer came back except the scream of wind. Anna forced down panic. He knew these storms. had survived worse during roundups, but as morning stretched toward noon with no sign of him, fear crept cold fingers around her heart. She dressed in her heaviest clothes, tied a rope around her waist, and secured the other end to the porch post. If she got lost in the storm, at least she could follow it back. The wind nearly knocked her down the moment she stepped outside. Snow stung her face like needles, and within seconds she couldn't see the house behind her. "Colt!" She screamed his name, but the wind tore it away. Following the fence line toward the barn, she fought for every step. Her skirts tangled around her legs, heavy with snow. When she finally reached the barn, she found it empty except for their 2 horses, huddled together for warmth. Think, Anna, where would he go? The cattle were probably sheltering in the draw to the west, where a line of cottonwoods provided some protection, but that was nearly a mile away. Impossible to reach in this storm, unless he'd tried anyway. Back at the house, Anna paced, torn between waiting and searching. Every minute that passed felt like an hour. The storm showed no signs of lessening. If Colt was hurt out there, trapped, she made her decision. Taking the gentler of their 2 horses, she fashioned a makeshift lead from extra rope and set out again. The horse balked at first, but Anna's determination won out. They pushed into the storm, following what she hoped was the fence line toward the draw. Time lost meaning in the white fury. Anna's face went numb, her hands frozen to the reins. The horse stumbled frequently, and more than once she thought they were lost. But some instinct, the horse's or her own, kept them moving in what felt like the right direction. Then, through a brief gap in the blowing snow, she saw something dark against the white, a shape, moving slowly. Her heart leaped. Colt! The wind brought back a faint response. Anna urged the horse forward until the shape resolved into her husband, leading a limping cow, his hat lost and ice coating his beard. "Anna," he stared at her as if seeing a ghost. "What are you doing out here?" "Finding you," she had to shout over the wind. "Are you hurt?" "Horse threw me. Think my ankle's twisted. This heifer's got a bad cut on her leg." Even now, injured and half frozen, he was trying to save their livestock. "Leave her. We need to get back." "Can't. She's carrying a calf." Of course he wouldn't abandon an animal, even at risk to himself. That was the man she'd married. Anna slid from the horse, gripping Colt's arm. "Then we all go together. Can you ride?" Between them, they got Colt mounted, the injured cow tied to follow. Anna led them back, trusting to luck and prayer and the rope she'd strung as a guide. By the time they stumbled into the barn, all 4 of them were more ice than flesh. Anna's hands shook as she helped Colt down. His ankle was swollen inside his boot, his face gray with pain and cold. She got him into the house, built up the fire until it roared, and set water to heat. Only when she'd cut his boot off and seen the purple swelling did she allow herself to cry. "Hey," he said softly, reaching for her with hands still clumsy from cold. "I'm all right." "You could have died out there. For a cow." "For our future. That heifer's bloodline is good. Her calf could be the start of something better." He winced as she wrapped his ankle. "Though I admit it seems less clever now than it did this morning." Anna tended him through the night as the storm raged. His ankle wasn't broken, just badly sprained, but he developed a fever from exposure. She bathed his face with cool cloths, forced willow bark tea between his lips, and prayed harder than she had since her father's final illness. "Don't leave me," she whispered when his fever spiked, his mind wandering to places she couldn't follow. "I can't do this alone." "Not alone," he muttered. "Never alone, Anna." By dawn, the fever broke. The storm had passed too, leaving a world transformed by white. Colt slept deeply while Anna did the chores, tending their animals and checking the heifer's wound. It would heal, she thought. They all would. When Colt woke, clear-eyed and hungry, Anna nearly collapsed with relief. You saved my life, he said simply. You saved mine first, the night we met. Then we're even. No. She sat carefully on the bed beside him. We're partners. That means we save each other as many times as needed. He caught her hand, kissing her work-roughened knuckles. How did I get so lucky? Luck had nothing to do with it. Now, can you eat? You need your strength. Over the next days, as Colt's ankle healed, they fell into a rhythm. Anna took over the outside chores while he worked on repairs from his chair. She learned to milk their cow, feed the chickens they'd acquired, and break ice on the water troughs. Her hands grew rougher, her shoulders stronger. When she caught her reflection in the window, she barely recognized the Kansas City school teacher she'd been. You're becoming a proper rancher's wife, Colt said one evening, watching her mend harness with competent fingers. Is that what I am? That and more. Teacher, bookkeeper, nurse, cowherder. He grinned. My grandmother would say you're a woman of all work. Your grandmother. It was the first time he'd mentioned family beyond his deceased father. Colt was quiet for a moment, then said, She raised me after my parents died. Tough old bird. Lived through the War of 1812 as a girl. She used to say the measure of a woman wasn't in her looks or her manner, but in her grit. She sounds wise. She would have liked you. I think, would have said you had backbone. Anna felt warmed by praise from a woman she'd never meet. What happened to her? I died when I was 20. Left me enough for college, which is how I ended up reading Caesar instead of just running cattle. His expression grew distant. I tried to use that education. Work in towns, be respectable. But turns out a man can't change what he is just by reading books. And what are you? A cowboy who reads books. He smiled ruefully. Not one thing or the other. You're both, Anna said firmly. That's not a weakness, it's a strength. How many educated men could have survived what you did in that storm? How many cowboys could quote Virgil while doctoring a cow? You make me sound more impressive than I am. I describe what I see. She set aside the harness and moved to sit beside him. A man who bridges worlds, even if neither fully claims him. I understand that feeling. I know you do. He pulled her close. Maybe that's why we fit. Two people who don't fit anywhere else. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Anna was hauling water when she heard horses approaching. Her heart sank when she recognized Todd Dalton leading 3 riders. Mrs. McCrae, Dalton said, touching his hat mockingly. Heard your husband was laid up. Mr. Dalton. Anna set down the water buckets carefully. What brings you here? Neighborly concern. Winter's hard on folks trying to start out, especially folks who make enemies before they even begin. Colt appeared in the doorway, leaning on a makeshift crutch Ben Foster had delivered. State your business, Dalton. Just came to make an offer. This place is barely scraping by. That storm probably cost you half your herd. I'll buy you out. Give you enough to start over somewhere else. Not interested. You sure spring's a long way off. Lots can happen to a small outfit between now and then. Fences cut, water rights contested. Dalton's smile was cold. Accidents happen. Are you threatening us? Anna stepped forward. Just observing. This is hard country. Takes more than determination to survive it. Takes friends, connections. He leaned forward in his saddle. Neither of which you have. We have what we need, Colt said steadily. Do you? Dalton's gaze swept their modest setup dismissively. Well, the offer stands. For now. After they left, Anna found her hands shaking. He means to drive us out. He means to try. Colt's jaw was set. But Daltons have been pushing folks around this valley for years. Maybe it's time someone pushed back. How he's rich, established. We're stubborn, smarter than he thinks, and not alone. Whatever he says. Colt moved to the table where he'd been working on ledgers. I've been thinking, What if we didn't just survive? What if we built something he couldn't touch? Over the next hours, Colt outlined his plan. Use Anna's education to teach local children, bringing in extra money. Build relationships with other small ranchers who'd also felt Dalton's pressure. Pool resources. Share labor. Create a network of mutual support. It's ambitious, Anna said. It's necessary. We can't fight him alone, but we don't have to. He looked at her intently. But it means staying. Really staying, no matter what he throws at us. Are you willing? Anna thought of the storm, of searching blind through white fury for this man who'd become her whole world. She thought of his fever dreams and her desperate prayers. They'd already survived so much. I married you in front of Judge Harrison and God, she said. For better or worse, this is the worst part. We'll work for the better. Together. Always together. That night, the temperature plunged again. They lay close under Mary's quilt, sharing warmth and plans for spring. Outside, coyotes howled and wind rattled the windows, but inside was warmth and love and fierce determination. I never expected this, Anna said softly. When I got on that train in Kansas City, I thought I was running away. Instead, I was running towards something I didn't even know I was looking for. What's that? A place to fight for, someone to fight beside. She turned in his arms to face him. You saved my life in more ways than pulling me from a blizzard. Colt McCrae. You saved mine too, from being half a person, never quite fitting anywhere. He kissed her gently. Now we fit together. The winter would be long. Dalton would make good on his threats. There would be cut fences and contested water rights and mysterious accidents. But there would also be neighbors who came to help. Children who learned at Anna's kitchen table. Small victories against large odds. And through it all, two people who'd found in each other not just love, but partnership in its truest form. They would save each other, over and over. Through blizzards, real and metaphorical. Because that's what partners did. The storm had tested them. Todd Dalton would test them more. But Anna McCrae, tall, educated, unfit for conventional life, had found her place at last. Here in this cabin with this man, building something worth fighting for. Let Dalton come. Let winter rage. She and Colt would endure it all. Together, spring came slowly to the valley. Melting snow revealing the damage winter had wrought. Anna stood on the porch, watching Colt work with their remaining cattle. His ankle had healed, leaving only a slight limp when the weather turned cold. They'd lost 8 head in the storms, a devastating blow to their small operation, but the survivors were thriving, including the heifer Colt had saved. Mrs. McCrae. Anna turned to find Sarah Patterson, the homesteader's daughter from the neighboring claim, riding up on a spotted pony. At 16, Sarah was all knees and elbows, her blonde braids forever coming undone. Good morning, Sarah, you're early for lessons. Pa sent me with news. There's talk of a meeting tonight, Mr. Jameson's place, about the water rights. Anna's stomach tightened. The water rights issue had been simmering all winter. Several small ranchers claimed historical usage of Willow Creek, but Todd Dalton had filed new papers with the territorial office, claiming exclusive access based on some obscure survey. Thank you for telling us. Now, have you finished the Shakespeare I assigned? Sarah's face fell. Most of it. Lady Macbeth scares me something fierce. She's meant to. Power corrupts, especially when seized through violence. Anna smiled. Come inside. We'll discuss it over tea. Teaching the local children had become one of Anna's greatest joys. Word had spread that the tall woman at the old Baxter place had education and was willing to share it. Now she had 6 regular students, their families paying what they could, sometimes coins, often eggs or preserved goods. As Sarah struggled through Shakespeare's prose, Anna thought about the meeting. Colt had been working quietly all winter, building alliances with other small ranchers. Men who'd initially dismissed him as a drifting cowboy had come to respect his knowledge and steady manner. The fact that he'd married that peculiar tall woman had actually helped. It showed he wasn't afraid of going against conventional wisdom. Colt returned at noon, dusty and thoughtful. Saw Tom Jameson in the south pasture. Meetings confirmed for tonight. Will Dalton be there? Doubt it. He'll send his lawyer. Probably. Cleaner that way. He washed at the pump, then looked at her seriously. I want you to come. To the meeting, Colt. It'll be all men. Which is why you should be there. You understand legal documents better than most of them. And if we're fighting this together, really together, then you should be present. Anna felt a surge of love for this man who saw her as a true partner. They won't like it. Probably not, but they'll get used to it. Way I see it, if their wives were as sharp as you, they'd want them there too. That evening, they rode to the Jameson ranch through a soft spring twilight. Anna had dressed carefully, her most modest dress, hair severely pinned, everything designed to be as unobtrusive as a 5'10" woman could manage. The Jameson barn was crowded with men, the air thick with tobacco smoke and tension. Conversation stopped as Anna entered beside Colt. Tom Jameson, a weather-beaten man in his 50s, cleared his throat awkwardly. Colt didn't expect, that is. My wife has a better understanding of legal matters than I do, Colt said calmly. Figured we'd need all the help we can get. A woman at a business meeting. This from Ezra Hollis, whose ranch bordered Dalton's. It ain't proper. Neither is Dalton stealing our water, Anna said quietly. Perhaps we should focus on the improper thing that actually threatens our livelihoods. A surprised silence fell. Then, from the back, old Pete Martinez laughed. Lady's got a point. My Maria's been telling me what to do for 30 years. Least this one knows her letters. The tension eased slightly. Tom Jameson gestured to some hay bales. Well, let's get started then. The situation was worse than Anna had realized. Dalton's lawyer had filed claims not just on Willow Creek, but on 2 other water sources, using surveys that mysteriously disagreed with older maps. If the claims stood, half the small ranches in the valley would be without reliable water. He can't just take what we've been using for years, someone protested. Legally, he might, Anna said, studying the documents Tom had obtained. These surveys were done by a territorial surveyor. That gives them weight. Unless what? Anna looked up. Unless we can prove the surveys are fraudulent. Look here, the dates. This survey was supposedly done in January, but it references landmarks that didn't exist until March. The men crowded closer, squinting at the papers. Excitement rippled through the group as they found more discrepancies. How do we prove it to a judge? Tom asked. We need the original surveys from the territorial office. Anna said, compare them to these, and we need witnesses who can testify about when various landmarks were established. That's a lot of legal work, someone said doubtfully. Lawyers cost money. I can draft the initial documents. Anna offered, I'm not a lawyer, but I can organize our evidence, write clear statements. Then maybe we can find a lawyer who'll take the case for a share of the settlement rather than upfront payment. The meeting went late, with Anna taking notes and organizing their strategy. By the time they rode home, the moon was high and bright. You were magnificent, Colt said. Did you see their faces when you caught that date discrepancy? I was terrified, Anna admitted. All those men staring at me. But you didn't show it. You just laid out facts. Clear as day. Tom Jameson said afterward you've got a better head for this than any of them. He did. He did. Also said I was either the smartest or luckiest man in the valley for marrying you. Colt reached over to squeeze her hand. I told him it was both. The next weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Anna spent her days teaching, her evenings writing legal documents and coordinating with the other ranchers. She rode to town to research property records, ignoring the whispers that followed her through the courthouse. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Samuel Turner, searching the stable's old files for something else. found a cache of original survey maps from 20 years prior. They clearly showed the water rights as the small ranchers claimed. Why would these be hidden in our stable? Samuel wondered. Anna had a suspicion. Who was the surveyor 20 years ago? Old Frank Dalton, Todd's father. The pieces fell into place. The Daltons had been manipulating surveys for decades, gradually expanding their claims. But they'd gotten sloppy this time. Or perhaps Todd lacked his father's attention to detail. Word of their discoveries spread. More ranchers joined their alliance, bringing additional evidence. Even some townspeople, tired of Dalton's heavy-handed ways, offered support. Then came the setback. Anna returned from town one afternoon to find Colt standing over the remains of their chicken coop. Feathers were scattered everywhere, bodies of their laying hens strewn about. Coyotes, she asked, though she knew better. Coyotes don't use wire cutters. Colt held up the severed fencing. This is a message. That night, they took turns keeping watch. Anna sat with her father's old rifle across her knees, remembering his lessons from childhood. She'd never thought she'd need them. On the third night, she heard horses approaching, 3 riders, moving quietly through the darkness. Anna woke Colt with a touch, then positioned herself by the window. That's far enough. She called out when they were within range. This is private property. The riders stopped. One laughed a young voice, probably one of Dalton's cowboys. Look, boys, the scarecrow's got a gun. And I know how to use it, Anna said steadily. Ask yourselves if Todd Dalton's paying you enough to find out how well. You wouldn't shoot, another voice said, less certain. Anna fired, the bullet kicking up dirt inches from the lead horse's hooves. The animal reared, nearly unseating its rider. The next one won't miss, she said. Get off our land, now! They wheeled and galloped away, cursing. Anna's hands shook as she lowered the rifle. Remind me never to make you angry, Colt said from behind her. I've never shot at anyone before, not even warning shots. You did what needed doing, protected what's ours. He took the rifle, setting it aside, then pulled her close. Though I suspect Dalton won't take this quietly. He was right. The next day, Sheriff Watson arrived, a thin man who owed his position to Dalton influence. Mrs. McCrae, I've had a complaint. Says you threatened some cowboys with a firearm. I defended my property against trespassers in the night, Anna replied, after someone destroyed our chicken coop and killed our stock. You file a report about that. Would it have done any good? The sheriff shifted uncomfortably. Can't have people shooting at each other. This ain't the wild frontier anymore. No, Colt said quietly. Now the violence wears legal papers and comes with surveyor's stamps. At least our way is honest. You threatening me, McCrae. Stating facts, same as my wife did when she told those riders to get off our land. The sheriff left with warnings about keeping the peace, but they'd made their point. Anna McCrae wouldn't be intimidated. Support came from unexpected quarters. Mary Foster arrived with a wagon full of supplies and tart words about men who think they own the world. Ben followed with lumber to rebuild the chicken coop. Even Reverend Matthews, perhaps feeling guilty about his earlier coldness, preached a sermon about standing up to Goliath. The night before the hearing on water rights, Anna couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, reviewing their documents by lamplight. Everything was in order, evidence organized, statements written, supporting documentation arranged. You've done all you can, Colt said, joining her. What if it's not enough? What if the judge sides with Dalton anyway? Then we'll find another way. But Anna, what you've built here, it's already a victory. Ranchers who never spoke before are working together. People in town are questioning Dalton's hold on them. That doesn't go away, whatever the judge decides. She leaned into his warmth. When did you become so wise? About the time I married a woman who sees answers where others see only problems. They made love that night with a tender desperation, aware that tomorrow could change everything. If they lost the water rights case, they'd lose the ranch. but lying in Colt's arms. Anna realized she'd already won the only thing that truly mattered, a partner who saw her complete worth, who stood beside her against any storm. "Whatever happens," she whispered in the darkness, "I love you." "And I love you," he replied. "Too tall, too smart, too brave for your own good. Just right for you, though." Exactly right, forever. Morning would bring the fight of their lives. Todd Dalton had money, influence, and the weight of tradition behind him. But Anna and Colt had something more: truth, determination, and a community finally ready to stand together. The water rights were just the beginning. Win or lose, they'd shown that Todd Dalton could be challenged, that might didn't always make right, that a tall woman and a cowboy could spark change in an unchanging place. Anna closed her eyes, feeling Colt's heartbeat against her cheek. Tomorrow would come soon enough. Tonight, in this simple cabin they'd defended with bullets and books alike, she was exactly where she belonged. "Stay anyway," she whispered, echoing words she hadn't yet spoken but someday would. "Try and make me leave," Colt murmured back, understanding flowing between them like the water they fought to protect. And Anna smiled in the darkness, ready for whatever came next. The courthouse in Dry Fork had never seen such a crowd. Ranchers, townspeople, even folks from neighboring settlements had come to witness the water rights hearing. Anna sat beside Colt in the front row, her stack of documents neatly arranged. Across the aisle, Todd Dalton lounged with studied casualness, his expensive lawyer beside him. Judge Theodore Blackwood, a circuit judge known for his fairness, called the proceedings to order. He was a stern man with silver hair and penetrating eyes that seemed to weigh every word. "This hearing will determine the validity of water rights claims along Willow Creek, Spring Creek, and Dutchman's Run," he announced. "Mr. Harrison, you represent Mr. Dalton." The lawyer rose smoothly. "I do. Your Honor, we'll demonstrate that my client's claims are based on legal surveys properly filed with the territorial office." "And who speaks for the other parties?" Anna stood, her heart hammering. "I do, Your Honor, Anna McCrae." A murmur ran through the crowd. Dalton's lawyer smirked. "Your Honor, surely these people should have proper representation. I've been admitted to hear evidence, not just lawyers. Mr. Harrison," Judge Blackwood said dryly. "Mrs. McCrae, are you prepared to present your case?" "I am, Your Honor." "Then proceed." Anna began methodically, laying out the historical use of the water sources by small ranchers, some going back 30 years. She presented old maps, sworn statements, and photographs showing established irrigation systems that predated Dalton's claims. "Interesting," the judge said, studying the documents. "But Mr. Dalton has official surveys. Do you dispute their accuracy?" "We do, Your Honor." Anna brought forward the crucial evidence. These surveys were supposedly conducted in January by territorial surveyor James Holbrook. However, they reference several landmarks that didn't exist until March specifically: a fence line built by Mr. Patterson after the spring thaw, and a rock formation exposed by flooding that occurred in late February. She handed the judge photographs with dates clearly marked, witness statements from those who'd built the fence and discovered the rock formation. Dalton's lawyer jumped up. "This is circumstantial." "It's factual," Anna interrupted. "Furthermore, we've discovered that Mr. Holbrook was never in this county in January. He was surveying mining claims in Colorado, as these territorial records show." The courtroom erupted. Judge Blackwood gavelled for order, his eyes now sharp with interest. "These are serious allegations. Mrs. McCrae, are you suggesting the surveys are fraudulent?" "I'm presenting evidence. Your Honor, the court can draw its own conclusions." Todd Dalton was no longer lounging. His face had gone red, and he was whispering furiously to his lawyer. "Your Honor," Harrison said, "we need time to examine these claims. You've had months to prepare your case. Mr. Harrison, Mrs. McCrae. Continue. Anna presented the original surveys Samuel had found, showing the true water boundaries. She explained the pattern of manipulation going back to Todd's father. Her voice grew stronger as she spoke, the months of preparation paying off. The small ranchers of this valley aren't asking for anything new. She concluded, they're asking to keep what they've always had, what they've worked and improved and depended on. Mr. Dalton seeks to take by paper what he couldn't take by force, the livelihoods of honest families. She sat down to scattered applause, quickly silenced by the judge's gavel. Colt squeezed her hand under the table. Harrison rose for rebuttal, but his polished arguments fell flat against Anna's evidence. When he tried to attack her credibility, a woman with no legal training, Judge Blackwood cut him off. Mrs. McCrae has presented clear evidence and logical arguments. Her gender is irrelevant to the facts before this court. The judge retired to consider. The crowd milled nervously, voices rising and falling like wind through grass. Anna stepped outside for air, Colt beside her. "Whatever happens, you were brilliant," he said. "I was terrified." "Couldn't tell. You looked like you were born to stand in that courtroom." Todd Dalton emerged from the courthouse, his face twisted with fury. He stopped before them, too angry for caution. "You think you've won something here?" he snarled. "You've made an enemy you can't afford. Woman, both of you." "We already were your enemies," Anna said quietly. "The only difference is now it's public. You'll regret this. I'll see you run out of this valley." "Mr. Dalton." Judge Blackwood stood in the doorway. "A word about threatening witnesses in my hearing." Dalton paled and hurried away. The judge looked at Anna and Colt thoughtfully. "Court will reconvene in 10 minutes, he said, and went back inside. The courtroom was packed to bursting when Judge Blackwood delivered his verdict. He sat silent for a long moment, his gaze sweeping the crowd. "Water rights are the lifeblood of this territory," he began. "They must be determined by law, not by force or fraud. The evidence presented today clearly shows that the recent surveys filed by Mr. Dalton are inaccurate at best, fraudulent at worst." Anna heard Colt's sharp intake of breath, felt her own heart stop. "Therefore, I rule that the water rights to Willow Creek, Spring Creek, and Dutchman's Run shall remain as they have been historically used, shared among the various stakeholders according to established precedent. Mr. Dalton's claims are denied." The courtroom exploded. Men who'd sat stoic through drought and blizzard openly wept. Women hugged each other. Todd Dalton stormed out, his lawyer trailing behind. But Judge Blackwood wasn't finished. "Furthermore, given the evidence of survey fraud, I'm referring this matter to the territorial prosecutor for criminal investigation. And Mrs. McCrae." Anna stood on shaking legs. "Your Honor, you presented this case with skill and clarity. Have you considered reading law? The territory could use more advocates like you." The celebration at the Jameson Ranch that night was like nothing the valley had seen. Tables groaned under the weight of food brought by grateful families. Musicians played, and couples danced under stars that seemed especially bright. Anna, overwhelmed by congratulations and thanks, finally escaped to the porch for a moment's peace. She found Mary Foster there, watching the festivities with a knowing smile. "Look at what you've done," Mary said. "6 months ago you were a stranger nobody wanted. Now you're the woman who saved the valley." "I just organized papers and spoke in court." "You gave them hope. You showed them they could fight back." Mary patted her hand. "That's worth more than water rights." Anna McCrae. Colt found them there, his face glowing with pride and possibly a little whiskey. "There you are. Tom Jameson wants to make a toast to the woman of the hour." "Oh no," Anna protested. "I've had enough attention." But she was swept back inside, where Tom raised his glass high. "To Anna McCrae, who proved that courage comes in all sizes, even extra tall. The laughter was warm, inclusive. Anna felt tears prick her eyes as she realized she was no longer an outsider. These people had become her community, her family. "Speech," someone called, and others took up the cry. Anna looked around the room at weathered faces made beautiful by joy. "I came to this valley as a stranger," she began. "I was too tall, too educated, too different. But some of you gave me a chance. You let me teach your children, trusted me with your legal papers, stood by me when powerful men tried to drive us away." She paused, finding Colt's eyes in the crowd. "My husband once told me we don't fit anywhere else. He was wrong. We fit here, with people who judge by character, not appearance, who value hard work over easy prejudice. This is our home now, and we'll defend it together, whatever comes." The cheer that went up could probably be heard in town. Anna was passed from embrace to embrace, her height forgotten in the warmth of acceptance. Later, as they rode home under a crescent moon, Colt was unusually quiet. "What are you thinking?" Anna asked. "About what Judge Blackwood said? You reading law." "That's ridiculous. A woman lawyer?" "A woman lawyer who just won the biggest case this county's seen." He glanced at her. "You could do it. Anna, might take some doing, finding someone to train you, but Colt, we have a ranch to run, cattle to raise. I can't go chasing dreams." "Why not? We've got good neighbors now who'd help with the ranch. And think what you could do with real legal training. Not just for us, but for everyone who can't afford fancy lawyers from the city." Anna was quiet, the idea taking root despite herself. It seemed impossible, but then so had everything else in her life recently. "We'll see," she said finally. "First, we need to survive whatever revenge Dalton plots." But Dalton's revenge, when it came, was through legal channels. The criminal investigation moved forward, revealing years of survey manipulation. Rather than face prosecution, Todd Dalton sold his holdings and left the territory, his empire crumbling like a castle built on sand. Spring flowed into summer. The ranch prospered with reliable water access. The heifer Colt had saved in the blizzard gave birth to a healthy bull calf, the start of their breeding program. Anna's school grew, parents eager for their children to learn from the woman who'd beaten Todd Dalton in court. One evening in late July, as they sat on the porch watching sunset paint the mountains gold, Anna made her decision. "I want to do it," she said. "Read law. Judge Blackwood sent a letter. There's a lawyer in Cheyenne who'll take me as an apprentice. It means being away sometimes, traveling back and forth. We'll manage. We've managed everything else." She looked at him seriously. "But only if you're truly willing. This is our life, our decision." Colt pulled her close. "Anna, you were meant for more than just being a rancher's wife, and I'd be selfish to pretend otherwise. If you can be both lawyer and rancher, teacher and wife, then that's what you should be." "It won't be easy. Nothing worth doing is, but we're good at impossible things. You and I." Anna smiled, remembering that first night in the stable when a stranger's kindness had saved her from despair. Now she had a home, a husband who saw all of her potential, and a future bright with possibility. "I love you, Colt McCrae," she said. "And I love you, Anna McCrae, future lawyer, present miracle, forever my perfect match." The stars came out one by one, watching over a valley at peace. Somewhere a coyote called, and cattle lowed in response. But on the porch of a small ranch house, two people who'd found their place in the world sat close together, planning dreams that no longer seemed impossible. Change had come to Dry Fork, brought by a woman too tall for convention and a man too complex for categories. Together, they'd proven that fitting in mattered less than standing up, that love could grow in the rockiest soil, and that sometimes the best revenge against those who'd reject you was simply to succeed beyond their wildest imagination. The water rights battle was won. The future stretched ahead. full of challenge and promise. An Anna McCrae teacher, ranch woman, soon-to-be lawyer, was ready for all of it. 2 years had passed since the water rights victory. Anna stood in the doorway of the Dry Fork General Store, a letter from Cheyenne in her hand. She'd just passed her final examination. She was now, officially, a lawyer. The first woman admitted to practice law in Wyoming Territory. Mrs. McCrae. Charlie, the shopkeeper, beamed at her. "Heard the good news already. Whole town's buzzing about our lady lawyer." "News does travel fast," Anna said, still hardly believing it herself. "Your husband know yet?" "I'm heading home to tell him now." "Well, don't let me keep you. Oh, and Mrs. McCrae. My sister's got a problem with her late husband's estate. Might you have time to look at it?" Anna smiled. "Come by tomorrow afternoon. We'll discuss it." As she rode home, Anna reflected on how much had changed. The woman who'd stepped off the train 3 years ago, desperate, unwanted, would hardly recognize herself now. The town that had once whispered behind her back now sought her counsel. Even Mrs. Walsh, that pillar of propriety, had come to her for help with a property dispute. She found Colt in the barn with their prize bull, the offspring of that blizzard heifer. Their herd had grown to 50 head, and they'd added a small band of horses that Colt trained for ranch work. "Well," he said, looking up as she entered. But he must have seen the answer in her face, because he set down his tools and swept her into his arms. "You did it." "I did it," she confirmed, laughing as he spun her around. "Anna McCrae, attorney at law. I knew you would. Never doubted for a minute." He set her down, his face serious now. "I'm so proud of you. Anna, your father would be too." "Don't make me cry," she warned, but it was too late. The tears came anyway, joy and grief mixed together. That evening, they sat on the porch as they often did, watching the sunset. But tonight felt different, weighted with significance. "What now?" Colt asked. "You could practice in Cheyenne, have a real office. And leave you here alone? Never." Anna had thought about this carefully. "I'll practice from here. Maybe rent a small office in town for client meetings. Handle local matters. Help folks who can't afford city lawyers." "You'll be busy, between that and teaching." "I'm giving up the regular teaching. Sarah Patterson's finishing her training to take over the school." Anna smiled. "She's nervous about it, but she'll do well." So the student becomes the teacher, and the teacher becomes the lawyer. Colt took her hand. "Things change fast out here." "Some things," Anna agreed, threading her fingers through his. "Others stay the same, like us." They were interrupted by the sound of horses approaching. 2 riders came into view, Tom Jameson and his son Robert, an earnest young man of 20 who'd been one of Anna's first students. "Evening, Colt, Mrs. McCrae." Tom called. "Sorry to intrude, but we've got news that couldn't wait." "What's happened?" Colt stood, instantly alert. "It's Todd Dalton. He's back." Anna felt her stomach drop. "Back, but the criminal charges?" "Dropped, apparently. His lawyer found some technicality." Tom's face was grim. "He's bought the Henderson place, next to yours, moved in yesterday with a crew of hired guns." "He can't cause the same troubles," Anna said, though her voice was uncertain. "The water rights are settled." "It's not water he's after now," Robert interrupted. "It's revenge. He's been telling everyone in town that he means to run you out, one way or another." Colt's jaw tightened. "Let him try." "That's what we figured you'd say," Tom said. "Which is why we're here. We've been talking, all of us who stood together before. We're not letting him isolate you. Starting tomorrow, you'll have neighbors stopping by regular-like. Any trouble starts, there'll be witnesses." Anna was touched by the gesture, but worried too. "I don't want anyone else getting hurt because of our feud with Dalton." "It's not just your feud anymore. Tom said firmly. When he went after you before, he was going after all of us. We stand together or we fall separately. After they left, Anna and Colt sat in troubled silence. They'd built something good here, something worth protecting. But Todd Dalton had resources and ruthlessness on his side. Maybe we should, Anna began. Don't, Colt interrupted. Don't even think about running. This is our home. We've earned our place here. I know, I'm scared. Colt, not for me, but for you. For what we've built. He pulled her close. Being scared is smart, but giving up isn't an option. Not anymore. The harassment started small. Cut fence lines that let cattle stray. Dead animals left at their gate. Shots fired at night. Just close enough to disturb sleep. Sheriff Watson, still in Dalton's pocket despite the changes in town, was remarkably unable to find evidence of wrongdoing. But the community response was swift. The Pattersons organized night watches. Ben Foster repaired every fence as fast as Dalton's men could cut it. Mary brought food and fierce encouragement. That man thinks he can waltz back here and pick up where he left off, she said, kneading bread dough with unusual violence. He's about to learn different. The climax came, unexpectedly, through legal channels. Anna was in her new office, a small room above the bank, when Mrs. Eleanor Henderson arrived. She was a dignified widow in her 60s, dressed in mourning black. Mrs. McCrae, I need your help, she said without preamble. Todd Dalton is trying to steal my husband's ranch. Anna set aside the contract she'd been reviewing. I understood you sold it to him. Under duress, he threatened to ruin my son's businesses if I didn't sell at his price, less than half what it's worth. I signed, but... She produced a document. I've learned he forged my late husband's signature on an earlier bill of sale, claiming he bought it before Henry died. He's trying to avoid paying even the pittance he promised. Anna examined the documents, her legal mind already working. This is fraud. Clear and provable fraud. Hey, can you stop him? I can try, but Mrs. Henderson, going against Todd Dalton in court. I'm 71 years old, Mrs. McCrae. What's he going to do to me that time won't do worse. Her eyes flashed. My Henry would roll in his grave if I let that man steal our land without a fight. Anna took the case. As she investigated, she uncovered a pattern Dalton had been using similar tactics all along his business dealings, assuming his victims would be too frightened or too poor to fight back. He's given us a gift. Anna told Colt that night. His arrogance is going to be his downfall. If we can get it to court, he's got Judge Pearson in his pocket. Which is why I've filed for a change of venue. These are federal crimes, mail fraud, forgery across territorial lines. This goes to federal court in Cheyenne, not local. Colt stared at her. You're taking on Todd Dalton in federal court. I'm taking on a forger and fraud, Anna corrected. The fact that he's also my neighbor is incidental. Word spread quickly. Suddenly, other victims came forward. Anna's little office became command central for what the newspapers would later call the biggest fraud case in territorial history. Dalton's response was swift and vicious. Anna woke one night to find the barn ablaze. By the time they got the fire out, they'd lost half their winter hay and nearly lost their prize bull. That's it, Colt said, his face black with smoke and rage. I'm going over there. No. Anna caught his arm. That's what he wants. You assault him, you go to jail, and I'm here alone. We fight him in court. And if the barn had spread to the house, if you'd been hurt, his voice broke. Anna, I can't lose you. You won't. We've come too far to let him win now. The trial was set for September. Anna worked 18-hour days, building an airtight case. She barely noticed the whispers starting again in town, but this time they were different. Did you hear she's taking on 4 other lawyers by herself? That woman's got more courage than sense. My money's on her. Did you see what she did to those water rights lawyers? The night before they left for Cheyenne, Anna stood in her office, reviewing her notes one final time. A soft knock interrupted her. "Come in," she called, expecting Colt. But it was Eleanor Henderson who entered, followed by Tom Jameson, the Pattersons, Ben and Mary Foster, and a dozen others. "We're coming with you," Eleanor announced. "Rented a whole railroad car. You're not facing him alone." Anna's throat tightened. "You don't have to—" "Yes, we do," Mary said firmly. "You stood up for us. Now we stand up for you. That's how it works." The federal courthouse in Cheyenne was an imposing stone building that spoke of permanent justice. Anna entered in her best black suit, head high, trying not to think about the fact that she was the only woman lawyer most people here had ever seen. Dalton's legal team smirked when they saw her. 4 men from Denver, expensive and polished. Dalton himself sat behind them, supremely confident. All rise for the Honorable Judge Marcus Warren. Judge Warren was a Lincoln appointee, known for his strict interpretation of law and intolerance for courtroom dramatics. He looked at Anna with interest but no visible prejudice. "I see we have a unique situation here. Mrs. McCrae, you're representing multiple plaintiffs." "I am, Your Honor." "And you're admitted to practice in federal court. As of last month, Your Honor." She presented her credentials. "Very well. Proceed." What followed was 3 days of intense legal battle. Dalton's lawyers tried every trick challenging Anna's competence, her evidence, her right to speak for others. But Anna had done her homework. Every objection was met with precedent. Every challenge answered with fact. When she presented the forged documents, bringing in handwriting experts and witnesses, Dalton's confident facade began to crack. When she showed the pattern of fraud extending back years, his lawyers started looking uncomfortable. On the 3rd day, Anna called her final witness Todd Dalton himself. He took the stand with obvious reluctance. "Mr. Dalton," Anna began, "do you recognize this signature?" "It's mine." "And this one?" "Also mine." "Can you explain why your signature from 1878 exactly matches your signature from last month? Down to every loop and curve, signatures evolve over time, don't they?" I'm very consistent." "Consistently fraudulent." Anna produced an overlay showing the signatures were identical tracings. These weren't signed years apart. They were traced from the same source. Weren't they? The courtroom erupted. Judge Warren gavelled for order. But the damage was done. By the time Anna finished her cross-examination, Dalton was sweating and stumbling over answers. The verdict was swift and damning. Guilty on all counts. Dalton would face prison time, and all fraudulently obtained properties would be returned to their rightful owners. As marshals led Dalton away, he passed close to Anna. "This isn't over," he hissed. "Yes," Anna said quietly. "It is." Outside the courthouse, the crowd from Dry Fork erupted in celebration. Anna found herself lifted onto Tom Jameson's and Ben Foster's shoulders, her protests lost in the cheering. "Put me down," she laughed. "This is undignified." "Dignity be hanged," Mary Foster shouted. "Our lady lawyer just sent Todd Dalton to prison." "Later, on the train home." Colt held her hand as she finally allowed exhaustion to claim her. "No regrets?" he asked. "You could practice in Cheyenne, Denver, anywhere now. You've made a name for yourself." Anna looked at him, this man who'd seen her worth when everyone else saw only her differences, who'd stood by her through fire and threats and long nights of study. "My name," she said, "is Anna McCrae of Dry Fork, Wyoming, wife, rancher, and country lawyer. That's all the name I need. Even if it means dealing with penny ante cases and chicken thieves. Especially then. Grand victories in federal court are satisfying, but helping neighbors with everyday problems, that's what builds a community." As the train carried them home through the gathering dusk, Anna thought about the woman who'd made this journey 3 years ago, frightened and alone. That woman could never have imagined this acceptance, success, And most of all, love. "What are you thinking?" Colt asked. "About how sometimes the worst things lead to the best things. If Dalton hadn't rejected me, if you hadn't offered shelter, if Mary hadn't given me work, if you hadn't been brave enough to accept it all and make something from it." Colt added, "Don't sell yourself short, counselor." Anna smiled, leaning into his warmth. Tomorrow there would be new cases, new challenges. The ranch needed tending, and there were always those who needed legal help they couldn't afford elsewhere. But tonight, she was simply Anna McCrae, coming home with her husband after winning an impossible victory. The tall woman who didn't fit anywhere had found her place at last, and it was exactly where she belonged. The morning sun painted the mountains gold as Anna stood on the porch, coffee cup in hand, watching Colt work with a young colt in the corral. 5 years had passed since their hasty wedding. Since Todd Dalton's final defeat, the ranch had prospered, growing to over 100 head of cattle and a respected line of working horses. But it was the other growth Anna treasured most. Her law practice had flourished, bringing justice to those who couldn't afford Denver lawyers. The small office above the bank had expanded to 2 rooms, with Sarah Patterson working as her clerk when not teaching school. "In, Mrs. McCrae," a voice called from the road. Young Timothy Jameson, Tom's grandson, came galloping up on his pony. "Ma says to come quick if you can. There's a lady at our place needs help. She's in a bad way." Anna set down her coffee. "What kind of help?" "Legal kind. I think she's scared something awful. Won't hardly talk to anyone, but Ma said you'd know what to do." Within an hour, Anna was at the Jameson Ranch, her leather portfolio under her arm. In Mary Jameson's kitchen sat a woman who looked barely 20, her face bruised, her clothes travel-worn. She held a baby not 6 months old. "This is Mrs. Smith," Mary said carefully. "She's come a long way looking for help." Anna sat across from the woman, keeping her voice gentle. "Mrs. Smith, I'm Anna McCrae. I'm a lawyer. Whatever's troubling you, I'll help if I can." The woman's eyes darted to the window nervously. "He'll find me. He always does." "Who?" "My husband. He says we're married, but I never—" She stopped, clutching the baby tighter. Anna waited patiently. In her years of practice, she'd learned that sometimes silence drew out truth better than questions. Finally, the story emerged. The woman's real name was Catherine Wells. She'd been working as a governess when her employer's brother had forced his attentions on her when she'd become pregnant. He'd dragged her before a justice of the peace, threatening her elderly parents if she didn't comply. Since then, she'd been virtually a prisoner, until she'd finally fled with her child. "He's powerful," Catherine whispered. "Owns mines in Colorado. He'll hire men to bring me back." "Not in my territory," Anna said firmly. "Mary, can Catherine stay here for a few days?" "Of course." "Good. I need to research some precedents." Anna turned back to Catherine. "You said he forced you to marry. Were there witnesses to the coercion?" "The justice of the peace knew. I was crying, begging, but he did it anyway." Anna's jaw tightened. "Then we have grounds. Forced marriage is no marriage at all." Back at her office, Anna dove into her law books. By evening, she'd built a case for annulment based on coercion and duress. More importantly, she'd sent telegrams to colleagues in Colorado, investigating the supposed husband. Colt found her there near midnight, surrounded by papers. Timothy Jameson said there was trouble. "A young woman fleeing a forced marriage." Anna rubbed her tired eyes. "She's terrified, Colt, and she has good reason to be." "What can you do?" "Get her marriage annulled, for starters, but that won't stop him from coming after her." Anna stood, pacing the small office. Unless we make it more trouble than it's worth. If he's the kind of man who forced a woman into marriage, he's likely done other things. Bad men rarely limit themselves to one crime." Colt smiled. I love watching your mind work. What do you need from me? Tomorrow. Can you ride to the telegraph office in Martinsville? I need messages sent to every mining town in Colorado, asking about David Hartwell. Consider it done. What they uncovered over the next week was worse than expected. David Hartwell had a string of accusations following him workers cheated of wages. Claims jumped. At least 2 other women who'd fled his employment under suspicious circumstances. He's coming, Catherine said when Anna presented her findings. I got word from my cousin. He's hired Pinkerton men to find me. Let him come, Anna said. We're ready. The confrontation came on a crisp October morning. Anna was in her office when she heard horses in the street below. Through the window, she saw 4 men dismounting 3 obvious hired guns, and a well-dressed man with cold eyes who could only be David Hartwell. She met them at the door. Gentlemen, can I help you? Hartwell looked her up and down dismissively. I'm looking for my wife. I have reason to believe she's in this town. I see. And you are? David Hartwell. This is a legal recovery of my property. He produced papers, a valid marriage certificate and a writ from a Colorado judge ordering her return. Anna examined the documents calmly. These seem to be in order. However, they're meaningless here in Wyoming territory. The law is the law. Indeed it is, and Wyoming law doesn't recognize Colorado writs in civil matters. Moreover, Anna produced her own papers. Mrs. Wells has filed for annulment on grounds of coercion, until that matter is resolved in our courts. She remains under territorial protection. Hartwell's face darkened. You can't keep a man from his wife. I can keep a man from dragging a woman across territorial lines against her will. Anna's voice hardened. Furthermore, Mr. Hartwell, I've been in communication with authorities in Colorado about certain irregularities in your business dealings. They're very interested in speaking with you. One of the hired guns shifted nervously. Boss, maybe we should... Shut up. Hartwell stepped closer to Anna, trying to use his height to intimidate. Unfortunately for him, Anna was taller. You don't know who you're dealing with, lady. Neither do you. Colt's voice came from behind Anna. She glanced back to see him standing easy and relaxed, hand resting on his holstered gun. Behind him stood Tom Jameson, Ben Foster, and 6 other men from town. Seems like you're outnumbered, friend, Tom said pleasantly. Might be best if you moved along. Hartwell looked around, calculating odds. The Pinkerton men were already backing toward their horses. They were paid to find people, not fight small wars. This isn't over, Hartwell snarled at Anna. I'll go to the territorial governor. Please do. I'm sure he'll be fascinated by the documents I've prepared about your activities. Anna smiled coldly. Including sworn statements from 2 other women you've married under similar circumstances. Hartwell went pale. Without another word, he turned and stalked to his horse. The hired guns followed, and within minutes they were riding hard out of town. Think he'll be back? Colt asked. No, men like him are cowards at heart. He'll find easier prey elsewhere. Anna turned to the gathered men. Thank you all for coming. Our pleasure, Ben said. Been too quiet around here anyway since Dalton went to prison. That evening, Anna sat with Catherine in the Jameson parlor, explaining the legal process ahead. The annulment would take time, but with Hartwell unlikely to contest it now, success was assured. I don't know how to thank you, Catherine said, tears streaming down her face. I thought I'd be running forever. No one should have to run from their own life, Anna said gently. You'll stay here until everything's resolved. Mary Jameson could use help with her household, and you'll be safe. But the money I can't pay, you pay by building a new life for yourself and your child. That's payment enough. Later, walking home under the stars, Colt took Anna's hand. You did a good thing today. We did a good thing. I couldn't have faced them down without you and the others. Still, 5 years ago, you were the one needing shelter. Now you're the one providing it. Anna considered this. It was true she'd become what she'd once desperately needed, someone who stood for the powerless, who offered hope when doors slammed shut. They were almost home when Colt stopped suddenly. "Anna, look!" Their ranch spread before them in the moonlight, the sturdy house with its new addition, the barn rebuilt stronger after the fire, corrals full of good horses, pastures dotted with cattle. But it was the small things that caught her eye, the swing Colt had hung from the big cottonwood, the garden plot she'd finally conquered, the bench where they sat evenings watching sunsets. "Sometimes I can't believe this is really ours," she said. "Believe it. We earned every acre, every board, every beast." He pulled her close. "Though I still say the best thing we earned is the right to be ourselves, here in this place. Together," Anna added. "Always together." They stood there in comfortable silence. Two people who'd found each other against all odds and built something lasting. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, cases to argue, ranch work to complete, lives to touch and change. But tonight, in this perfect moment, Anna allowed herself to simply be grateful. The too-tall woman from Kansas City had become Anna McCrae of Dry Fork, wife, rancher, lawyer, and voice for the voiceless. It wasn't the life she'd planned, but it was the life she'd fought for and won. "Ready to go home?" Colt asked. Anna looked at him, this complicated cowboy who'd seen her truly from the very beginning, who'd offered shelter when she had nowhere else to turn, partnership when she thought she'd always stand alone, and love when she'd believed herself unlovable. "I am home," she said. He smiled, understanding flowing between them as it had from the start. "Then let's go inside. It's getting cold, and I believe you promised to help me with the breeding records after supper." "Romantic as always," Anna laughed. "You want romance?" In one swift movement, Colt swept her off her feet, carrying her despite her protests about propriety and dignity. "How's this? Colt McCrae, put me down this instant. What if someone sees?" "Let them see. Let the whole territory see that Colt McCrae loves his wife and isn't afraid to show it." Anna stopped protesting, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Well, when you put it that way." He carried her up the porch steps and paused at the door. "Anna, that first night, when I found you by the stable, did you ever think we'd end up here?" "Never," she admitted. "I thought I was at the end of everything. Instead, it was just the beginning." "The best beginning," he agreed, and carried her across the threshold of the home they'd built together. Inside, the fire crackled warmly in the hearth. The lamp cast golden light over books and papers, over the life they'd created through determination and love. On the mantel sat their wedding photograph, Anna seated, Colt standing behind her, both looking serious and slightly stunned, as if they couldn't quite believe their good fortune. They still couldn't, sometimes, but it was real. As real as the challenges they'd faced and overcome, as real as the community they'd helped forge. The justice Anna brought to those who needed it, the ranch that prospered under their joined hands. "Stay anyway," Anna whispered, echoing words that had become their private promise, their inside joke, their declaration of love all rolled into one. "Try and make me leave," Colt responded, as he always did, as he always would. And Anna smiled, knowing that here in this place they'd claimed against all odds. With this man who saw her truly, she'd found something worth more than acceptance or success. She'd found home. She'd found herself. She'd found forever. The too-tall woman and the educated cowboy. The mismatched pair who'd matched so perfectly they'd written their own story in the harsh land of Wyoming territory. And it was, Anna thought as Colt's lips met hers, a very good story indeed. One that was still being written, day by day, year by year, in acts of courage and kindness and stubborn refusal to be anything less than themselves. Together, always together, forever. Thank you so much for listening to this Wild West love story. I hope Anna and Colt's journey touched your heart as much as it touched mine while sharing it. I'd love to know where in the world you're listening from. Please leave a comment below and share your thoughts about their story. If you enjoyed this tale of courage, love, and finding where you belong, please subscribe to Wild West Stories 1850 and hit that like button. And if you really want to help more people discover these authentic frontier stories, please hit the hype button to boost this video. Until next time, keep riding toward your own sunset, partners.